years partnering with Workies, we've seen a massive growth.
Hey everybody, welcome to the second webinar that we're doing, part of the JRA webinar series presented by Workies. It's our second webinar today. Had several people jump on the one at 12 o'clock, and we've got it's our third webinar. Yeah. Well, it's third webinar overall, but second one that we've actually done today. So appreciate you joining this series. I've got Christian Fowler, my business partner. He started Junk Doctors with me about 12 years ago. Runs the day-to-day now, and also leads up a lot of our business package side of things and consulting with over at Junk Removal Authority. So, Christian, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So, today we're going to be talking about some of the, not all, but some of the systems and processes that we use at Junk Doctors to help us scale from that old rugged, ragged pickup truck and trailer back in 2011, 2012, to 17 trucks, $3 million a year operation in 3 locations within the state of North Carolina. So again, these aren't all the systems, but they're some of the very important ones. We're going to cover maybe a couple KPIs that we like to really pay attention to. And we're going to talk about how you can get this information, what platforms we use to get this information, what software and platforms we use to kind of keep everything organized, and what the reports mean and how you can implement them in your business. So, ready to get started?
Let's do it.
All right, we're going to roll into this. First off, also, if you guys need anything to help you start, run, or grow your junk removal business, head on over to junkra.com. You can find out about the digital marketing services that we have. If you're looking to start your business, about our alternative to franchising, which is our JRA business package, there's a lot of great information over there as well. All right, so let's roll into systems and processes. And one of the very first things that I want to really talk about is for those of you that have just recently started and you're out on the truck, like, it's relatively easy when you're the one on the truck. Like, there's some stuff you got to learn and do, and there's ways of getting jobs booked when you're on the phone and making sure that you get a high price and the job actually proceeds once you're on site. But once you're ready to start moving off the truck and you're ready for employees to begin quoting jobs and you're ready to run multiple trucks and kind of expand, that's when things get much more complicated, and that's when a lot of people get in trouble. If you're not careful, your average job sale begins to go down. People might steal from you. You might have time theft also, where people are delaying getting jobs done throughout the day. That way they don't have time available to add a same-day pickup on towards the end of the day. So there's certain things you can do and really pay attention to, and certain things you can set up to encourage people to want to do more work and more jobs that will prevent that from happening. That's some of the stuff that we're going to talk about today. So, one of the first things I want to talk about, Christian, is I know we use checklists quite often with Junk Doctors. And what are some of the checklists that we like to use, and what are the reasons that we use those for?
Yeah, so I know when we first started, we had things that we did in the morning, at the end of the day, but we really wanted to make sure that we got everything processed and on paper. That way all of our employees could follow it every time. Mm-hmm. And we use paper for years and years and years. Mm-hmm, and, mm-hmm. It can work, but you really need something that's digital so your employees can use it, especially when you have multiple locations and stuff like that. And just to backtrack a little bit, when I talk about systems and processes, from day one, I always recommend, even the business owner that's starting, his business brand new, think about, if you're a 10 truck operation, a 20 truck operation, what is this process going to look like? What is this system going to look like? And I recommend go ahead and set it up like that. We started using Whip Around a couple years ago, and it's been a fantastic system for us. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard about it. It's basically an app that you can design any checklist you want on there. We use beginning of day checklist, end of day checklist, and there's about 15 or 20 different things that are on each checklist. But what that does is it makes sure that our employees are getting those things done every single morning before the truck leaves the shop. And then when they get back, they check everything in, they clean the truck, that sort of stuff. That way the next day we can start with a clean truck that's ready to go.
So, Neb, move over to my screen here. And I've pulled up whiparound.com. This is the system. It's, as you can see right here, Got Junk uses them, Pods uses them. Well, we use them at Junk Doctors, and a bunch of the customers of JRA use it as well. It's relatively inexpensive. I think it's something like about $5 or $10 per month, depending on your setup. Is that right?
Yeah, there's 2 different levels. One is $5, I think, for the standard, and then $10 for the Pro, which is more a fleet maintenance type solution.
So what are some of the items that we have on these checklists? Like, I know we've got a beginning of day, end of day checklist. We've got a job checklist.
Yeah.
We've got maintenance.
Yeah.
You know, talk a little bit about the different types of checklists that we use.
So tools is the big one. That's when we put this in place, that helped us prevent from losing tools on the job site because it holds your employees accountable. You know, you have whatever number of tools on the truck. Let's say you got 20 tools on the truck. It goes out, you know, that day, and then it comes back and you're missing a sledgehammer. The crew that checks that truck in the next day is going to notice that that sledgehammer is gone. And using this system, you'll be able to go back and see who was on that truck, figure out what happened to it, and that prevents your guys from losing tools, holds them accountable also. On that beginning of day checklist also, one of the big things that we do every single day, no matter what, is in the first thing in the morning we wash the trucks every single morning. It's not a really, you know, power wash in detail type of thing, but we're making sure that the taillights are good, the mirrors are good. You really got to pay attention to those back doors. They get really caked up at the landfill and stuff like that. Your tires, stuff like that. Really important to show up to that customer with a clean truck.
So I know we wash the trucks every single day, which is probably a little bit overkill. The other thing we do is we detail it, like at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know, we got Armor All and hit all the vinyl stuff with Armor All. We vacuum it out, throw any of the loose trash out. Probably not required every single day, right?
It's definitely not. It's not required every day. But the problem you run into is if you tell your employees, if it's dirty, clean it, all of a sudden that truck's never going to be dirty enough to clean. Mm-hmm. So that's a system in place, whether they do one job or whether they're doing 10 jobs. At the end of the day, they come in, they vacuum that truck, they armor all the dash, the gauge cluster, the windows, everything. I mean, it should look like a rental truck. It should look like you're returning a U-Haul. You know, it should be clean.
Every business needs kind of a pulse and different or a routine that it does on a regular basis. So when you leave things up for people to interpret whether it needs to be done or not, unless you give it very clear standards and you've got a capable individual, it's leaving stuff up to chance. So what we like doing, we like overdoing some of the stuff. We want to do things on a regular basis so it becomes a habit. So it's very obvious if you look inside a truck and their trash from the day before is in there or whatever. Well, what happens is if you allow that to get in there, then all the other checklists that you use, like people notice if you allow a scratch on your truck to remain, if you allow it to stay dirty, you know, before you know it, they're going to start doing a lot of things, kind of cutting corners and all, and your business will start to run off the tracks. So there was a book that came out years ago called No Broken Windows, and that's one of the first things it talked about. It's like if you've got some damage on your truck or if you've got something you've noticed that should be getting done that isn't getting done, you got to address that and you've got to fix it right then because that stuff festers and it builds. So it's very, very important to make sure that you fix any broken windows, or in this case, any scratches on your truck or anything that's not getting done that it should. And you want to do stuff on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. Because if you do that, then it becomes a habit and this stuff is much more likely to actually get completed. So I want to talk a little bit about the tool stuff, because I know we used to spend a ton of money on tools. And when we started using Whip Around, a lot of that went down. Now, even prior to that, though, really what happened is we started actually listing the value of tools. Yeah. So you're doing that on Whip Around too now, right?
Yes, you can put whatever you want on there. But putting that price on there, it kind of brought attention to the employees that, okay, this sledgehammer is not a $10 sledgehammer. This is a $60, $70, $80 sledgehammer. Mm-hmm. And it makes them a little more aware of the cost that you're spending on all these tools. Mm-hmm.
Do you ever have the employees pay for it if they lose stuff?
You can. That's one of the things we did is we were having an issue. Tools were going missing, they were getting broken and stuff like that. We put in place a system where, if you lose a tool, it comes out of your paycheck. And do I do that every time? No. But what that did is it made the employees more aware that if something happens, if they lose a tool, it's going to come out of their paycheck. Now, if they break a sledgehammer doing a hot tub or something like that, I'm not going to take it out of their paycheck. But it's really to make them aware that we have a ton of costs in these tools and they need to be held responsible for those.
You could track if there's consistent employees that are always losing tools and all, then you'll kind of just keep up with that. And if you get to the point where it's like 2 or 3 times in a pretty short time frame, that's when you might enact actually charging an employee for a lost tool. Although you should be aware in your local state what the requirements are around that. So like in North Carolina, you can do it if there's a policy that is put into place kind of beforehand and people are aware of it and it doesn't bring their pay below minimum wage, then you can technically do that. Again, it's something that we allow people a couple times a quarter to lose some sort of a tool. Now, part of that is dependent on what it is. If it's a screwdriver or something like that, that's one thing. If it's a $250 Sawzall, that's another. So you just need an established policy in place around that. They sign off on it to showing that they're aware of it. And then you follow that policy and then you're generally good to go. Again, we don't want to do that every time and we don't do it every time, but there is an established policy in place. If it becomes a huge issue, we've got to do that to kind of protect our bottom line and to get it to stop. And oftentimes you get them to stop if it hurts them in their wallet. If they have to actually pay for something, then all of a sudden things quit going missing as much. All right, both Christian and I are open for questions also, so he doesn't get on many of these things. So if you got any questions for him about running Junk Doctors and what it's taken to get it to where it is now and what it's like running a $3 million a year junk removal company in 3 locations, make sure you post them in the comments. Now's your time to kind of pick his brain. All right, so we've talked about whip around here. We didn't really cover truck maintenance much, right?
No, let's talk about that.
Okay.
One other thing that I wanted to mention on the beginning of day checklist that has saved us thousands and thousands of dollars. So we have 2 guys in the truck at all times. The guy that's behind the wheel, we call him a team lead or sales lead. Every one of our team leader sales leads is taught and trained how to plug a tire. And you guys know this, in and out of landfills every single day and transfer stations and stuff like that. You're gonna have nails and screws and tires and all sorts of stuff going on there. So that's one of the things we do every single morning and every single evening at the end of the day is we check the tire pressure. Because if you leave the shop with a tire that's got a slow leak, you get halfway through your day, all of a sudden a tire blows, you're in trouble at that point. So we go ahead and fix them at the shop. I will mention if it's a steer tire, we typically don't plug those tires. We get those tires patched or replaced. But the rear tires, we plug them and we get them back to where they should be.
And most of the tires, the tires that you're gonna have issues with are gonna be your rear tires because you normally hit it when you're backing up at the landfill. So the front tires get them, but it's definitely much less. We do want to do those inside patches though, if we can, just for liability reasons. So excellent point there. All right. As we continue through this, we started truck maintenance. I know we started talking about the plugs there, but how are we keeping up with the maintenance on 17 vehicles?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, like Lee mentioned, when you're a one-man show with just one truck, it's very easy to keep up with your oil changes and your brakes and all sorts of stuff like that. But when you start to get that second truck, that third, fourth, fifth truck, it becomes much more difficult. Whip Around has the system on there where you can put in certain intervals with mileage, with hours, whatever you want to do, where certain things need to take place. Certain oil changes, brakes, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So part of the morning checklist is the guys, when they hop in that truck for the day, they put in the odometer reading on that truck. And when it hits a certain point, myself and our dispatch guy get a notification that, hey, truck 14 needs to be scheduled. It's within 500 miles of an oil change. So at that point, we have about a week to go ahead and get that truck down for an oil change, a PM or whatever. And then that gets put back into Whip Around. So it keeps track of everything there. We get notifications. That way we're not having to look at every single truck and see, how many miles left until truck 17, needs an oil change or whatever. Mm-hmm. So it's a great system to have.
It just got cold across a good portion of the U.S. Started several days ago. If you're out west, it's made its way to the East Coast now. It's cooled off a lot. And one of the first things that happens when stuff cools off is you have battery issues. So that is an example. Normally on batteries, you'll get about 3-4 years out of them. So in whip around, you schedule a battery when you have a battery issue, and you can say, hey, let's change this battery again in 3 years time frame. And you might sit in there and say, hey, if you got a gas truck, I don't know if I want to spend $250 on a battery every 3 years until it goes out. But that downtime, like if that battery goes out, unless you happen to have another battery sitting on the shelf, which unless you have a ton of vehicles doesn't make sense because it could go bad, it's going to cost you hours by the time you go and get a new battery, you bring it back, and it's going to get you late for the day. And you got guys, you're paying probably close to $20 each per hour. So if it takes you 2 hours to get that thing changed out, you're at $80, plus you're late to your first job, and the rest of your day is going to be off. It's not worth the headache. So every 3 years or so, plug into there, especially if you time it right before it gets cold. Plug in, hey, let's go ahead and change the battery on this truck because this battery's 3 years old. Oil changes, everybody understands that. Air filter replacements, like air filters, Isuzu says it has a certain amount of time or a certain number of miles. I think it's 36,000 miles if I remember right. Most of the time, that's once per year. So if you just want to plan once per year to change out all the air filters on all of your vehicles, that's generally going to be about the easiest kind of thing to do. Getting ahead of maintenance is so important to helping you avoid downtime and headaches. And there's a couple things in business you want to try and limit. One is downtime in the junk removal business. The second thing is stress and headaches. Doing maintenance on a scheduled basis will allow you to plan for that stuff and it not to be unexpected, which kind of raises that stress factor up. So very important, regular maintenance. You can look at if you buy a new vehicle, such as from like junkremovaltrucksforsale.com, especially truck bodies, whatever. A lot of times there'll be a maintenance program that's included for a period of time. You kind of follow that, and there's going to be maintenance mileage and stuff where you do different things. If you stay ahead of it, you're going to avoid the downtime, and you're going to guarantee maximum life out of your vehicle. And whip around is excellent for that. So, anything else we want to cover on whip around, or we feel like that's a pretty good overview of it?
I feel like it's a pretty good overview, unless you have any questions on it. I don't think we do, but
nothing so far. But if you guys use whip around, throw it in the comments. I'm curious how many people actually use whip around on a regular basis. We know a lot of our clients do, and just kind of give your feedback on whip around because there's a lot of people that's going to be interested in potentially using it. All right, so let's talk a little bit about cameras. How do we utilize cameras and telematics in our business?
So the system that we have, it's a camera that sits on the dash or on the windshield of the truck. It's got 2 cameras, one that points at the road, one that points in the cab. All of our drivers have certain logins, and you can create a different login for any employee you have. And this system tracks, I love it because it's got like a scorecard that it uses, right? And it grades all of your drivers each day, and it gives them instant feedback to how they did that day. And it takes away points for certain things like harsh braking, speeding. It's got that technology in there that is able to understand, if they're texting and driving, if they're eating and driving, drinking and driving, anything like that. It'll detect that and take it off their scorecard. Just like you're in school, you start with 100 and then it subtracts every time there's a ding on their driving behavior. So that's a great system to use. It does so much more than that. It allows you to have live view. You can put certain geo fences in there so you can see where your trucks are. You can put in, what we've done is put in all of our employees' addresses. So if they go home, we get a notification. You've got to have a system like that when you start to have multiple trucks on the road, just to keep track of everything that's going on, without you as the owner being in the truck.
Love it. So, and those systems are relatively inexpensive. What's about $1,000 for the entire setup up front?
Yeah.
What is it, about $60 a month?
Yeah, it's like 58 a
for
month.
the live view.
Yeah.
So it's pretty inexpensive. It is definitely worth it if you're not on every single job. So if you're on every job, it's maybe less important, but as soon as you start having somebody else driving that truck, a good telematics and camera system allows you to be in that vehicle without physically having to be in that vehicle. And the driver scorecards allow you to have a number. And you'd like to be able to measure something in order to manage something. So by having that number, now when you're doing quarterly reviews with employees, or if there's issues coming up with texting and driving and all like that, it's like you're immediately notified of it and you can address it and fix it. So it's really, really, really important. So Junk Something asks, what's Whip Around? Whip Around is the system we use for checklist and vehicle maintenance. It's cheap. It's like $5 to $10 a month. And if you have multiple vehicles that you're running, it is a very, very good tool. We were talking about before, we were just over on their webpage. 1-800-GOT-JUNK uses them, we use them, and we've probably got about 25 or 30 clients that I know use them on a regular basis. So check it out, especially if you've got multiple vehicles rolling down the road. Even if you don't though, it's just a great way of kind of keeping track of mileage on your own vehicle. It'll send you email alerts and all that good stuff when it's time to do some routine maintenance.
And that's per vehicle, $5 or $10 a month per vehicle.
That's right. Yep, that's right. So very good. Okay, continuing. Jumping around just a little bit here, we're going to pop back into checklist. So one of the things that our guys obviously do, the most important thing as soon as you think about hiring truck team members is you're going to have a driver and you're going to have somebody that actually physically loads the junk and quotes the job. But we look at our people as kind of salespeople and marketers as well, right?
Yeah.
So what are some of the things on the truck during and in between jobs that they can be doing to help promote the business?
Great question. So we call this side of the business truck-based marketing. And there's a whole list of things you can do. The couple of things that I really have seen a great return with and that I always recommend is yard signs or bandit signs, whatever you want to call them. The teams go out with 5 to 10 each day, and they're responsible for getting those out between jobs. The other thing is Post-it notes. Now, we used to use door hangers, but a lot of times what I've noticed is the door hangers, even personally, if I see a door hanger on my door and I get home, I just take it off and put it in the trash can. But with the Post-it notes, you can put those on the back side of mailboxes on the post. You can't put them on the actual mailbox. You can put them on the back side, or you can put them on the door. And if you're walking up to your front door and you see a Post-it note, it's almost like somebody left you a little note, to read when you got home. So you're gonna at least take it off and look at it. And those have been pretty successful for us. They're really cheap. What you can do also with the Post-it notes is, let's say you do a job, you've got 2 guys on the truck, you can have one guy hit the 5 houses on one side, the other guy hit the 5 houses on the other side. And, if you do 1,000 jobs a year, that's 10,000 houses right there that you could have hit and that would have been able to see that Post-it note with your business on there.
So what I'm writing up here, Christian, is I'm writing up here, do it when you're busy.
Yeah.
Not just when you're slow. And the last thing I'll add is if you do this when you're busy, you won't be slow as often.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put you won't get slow, which that's not 100% factual, but I don't want to add a bunch of extra things after writing here. So do it even when you're busy and you won't get slow. So here's the thing with marketing. With marketing, you got to do it all the time. And remember what we talked about earlier? It's not up here anymore, but I wrote up there. Do it do it on a regular basis so it becomes a habit. Marketing is the exact same thing. What we see and what is one of the reasons we've been able to accomplish what we can. $3 million a year, 3 locations, over 17 trucks in North Carolina, over about a 12-year time frame, is on the marketing side of things. We do marketing if we're busy, if we're slow, or if we're anywhere in between. Especially truck-based marketing. It is very easy when you're busy. If you've got 5, 6, 7 jobs on the schedule, a bunch of full loads, whatever it might be, it's very easy to want to skip those yard signs and skip those sticky notes and that sort of deal. And we want to really make sure we're getting those out there.
Yeah.
Workies can assist us a little bit with that because of the picture submission. So one of the things that you can do, now not everybody does this, but when you show up on a job site, you ask the customers, hey, can I place a yard sign in your yard? We're a small business. We need all the help we can kind of get, especially in this day and age. We want to do a great job for you. Can we place a sign in your yard? And whenever you're ready to be finished with it or whatever, you can just pick it up and just, hey, hold on to it. And, if you ever need to use this again, that sign can be $20 off your next truckload or whatever. Well, you can add to it, which is like, hey, would you be willing to take a picture with me in front of this sign? And not every customer will, but at the very end of the job, being like, hey, I'd love to grab a picture. We can stick it down on our social media. Let's just give a thumbs up beside the sign. So for every picture that we get, we can actually pay that team member like $5 or $10 per sign. So not everybody does this, but it's a great way to encourage the guys and let the guys really enjoy that side of it. They can get a little bit of reward. And like, listen, it's very easy on your Facebook page to create content if you just have smiling customers along with smiling team members giving a thumbs up beside a yard sign or beside a truck, whatever you want to do. Yard sign's great though because the yard sign stays there over time. Sticky notes. On the back of sticky notes, you can have a area where the team member initials their name, and for every sticky note that gets turned in, you could pay out $5 or $10 for that particular sticky note too. So you want to, so in this way, you're kind of hitting your team members from both sides, both from a, hey, you better do this because it's on the checklist and we're looking, as well as an encouragement side where you're kind of pulling them along saying, hey, do this because you get rewarded.
It goes to like any reward program that you have in your business, bonuses, whatever. I always tell all of our customers, you know, if it's not going to change your employees' behavior, it's not going to work. It's gotta change your behavior to want to do it. It's tough to hand them a Post-it note and say, go do this. You know, they might do it, but if you can have an incentive program where they get paid for doing it when they land jobs, you know, that's huge.
Makes them happier too.
Yeah.
So, which is very good. Stable employees are worth their weight in gold. It's worth paying a little extra. Christian and I were actually having a conversation about this yesterday, and we were talking about, you know, sometimes it's worth overpaying somebody just so you don't have to closely manage them as much, and you don't have to worry about replacing them.
Yeah.
Like you look at certain things sometimes, and it's like, this job's only worth X amount of money. But you know what? It's worth a little bit more if you don't have to worry about that individual. So you want to identify your really, really good employees, the guys that are loyal, the guys that do excellent work, the guys you really don't have to closely manage, that are kind of self-starters and get a lot of stuff done. And it's worth overpaying those individuals a little bit because it's one less thing you've got to focus on or worry about. Talk a little bit about pay for junk doctors employees. I know we did a show or a video about 6 months ago. I did one on kind of a pay scale throughout America for junk removal companies. Mm-hmm. But talk a little bit right now, like just in North Carolina, what are we starting guys out at, and what are some of our top guys making?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's about a range of $16 to $17 an hour. If we get a rock star in there, you know, we might start them a little bit higher. But every market's different. North Carolina is kind of a middle market, I would say, middle to upper market across the country. We're not New York, California, but we're not, you know, Alabama, Mississippi type thing. Our guys, our top guys are making $22 to $24 an hour. On top of that, our top guys, I've tracked this a few months ago, on average, they're making an extra $12 an hour in tips. So our top guys are out there making $36 to $38 an hour if you include tips, which for a kid that's in his mid-20s, you know, it's pretty good money. For them to work 30 to 40 hours a week, pretty flexible schedule.
What did our top guys earn last year, including tips?
Total, $75,000.
So our top guy earned like 75 grand on the truck. So, you know, that's between an incentive program, tips, and you know, just regular pay, 75,000. So not everybody earned that. I'm sure there's some overtime in there too.
Yeah.
We try and limit overtime, but you know, when you're really, really busy, you're going to get some of that. So 60 to 75 grand for your top guys. That's pretty good. You know, like you said, pretty good money. Relatively low stress. You know, they show up, they work 3-4 days a week, and they've got a couple days off, 3 days off, and then they're back in it again. Most of our guys are working 12-hour or so shifts on average, give or take. This time of year might be a little bit less. In the busy season, 12 is pretty common, 7 to 7. We had some guys roll until 8 or 9 the other night, didn't we?
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah. I mean, when we first started, I mean, Christian and I would roll out. We'd think we would be done for a day, and all of a sudden a call would come in at like 7:30 at night, and we'd head on out. And there were times, you know, we'd started the day at 7 in the morning. We wouldn't end until 10 p.m. at night. slinging junk all day and didn't really, I felt like we could have kept on doing it even more after that. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, good. So we've talked about employee pay. We've talked about whip around, checklist, yard signs, sticky notes. All of that is really, really important. So let's roll in to talk a little bit about Workies, because Workies is something we use a ton. So tell me a little bit about what are some of the ways that we utilize Workies?
Yeah, that's a great question. As you scale, it's really important to have a really, really solid CRM to keep up with everything. When we were looking at CRMs to use, we used to use Google Calendar. Actually, before that, we used to use pen and paper.
Paper. Yeah, I still have those in my house. I need to get rid of it, but I still have probably 15 boxes of old schedules, like daily schedules, because at the beginning of the day, we'd have schedules printed out. And when we first started, we had MapQuest. Routes. We had Garmin GPSs and all that we would generally use, but there was a time when we first got employees, we would print out the MapQuest maps too. So you'd have like 4 or 5 jobs on the schedule plus 2 pages each on MapQuest directions.
Yeah.
And those are all in boxes in my house, and I need to clear them out. But yeah, it was that, and then we went to Google Calendar, and then where did we go from there?
We went to another system that it was okay, but I wasn't a huge fan of. We were with them for, I would say, a couple years, maybe 2-3 years. And then we went to Workies. When we were reviewing Workies, there's a couple other systems we were looking at also. And one of the things, anytime I implement anything with junk doctors, I'm always thinking about how can I simplify this for our employees? I want to make the employees' lives as easy as possible with our systems and processes. So Workies did that. I love their mobile system. Their mobile app is extremely easy to use. It's very, very easy for all of our employees to understand, easy to train them on. And inside of that, Workies has a number of different systems that I use as a business owner to track how things are moving along. KPIs, if you will. I don't know if you want to touch on those already.
Sure. Yeah, we can run into them.
Sure. So in Workies, Workies tracks a number of different things. There's a few different important numbers that we look at on a daily and weekly basis. Top 2 or 3, number 1 is average job sale. That's something that I'm looking at on a daily and a weekly basis. Cancellation rate is another big one that we look at, and that's on-site and off-site cancellations. We track that on a daily basis. Those on-site versus off-site tell you 2 different things. And then what else do we have on there?
You got AGS, you got the cancellation rates broken down by individual team member.
Yep.
Now, one thing we have to track, we need to get Workies. It would be nice to get Workies to actually be able to automatically track this, but we're doing sales per payroll hour.
Yes.
So sales per payroll hour, that's one of the most important KPIs that we track, right?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, what do you want to see, and how do we use it, and kind of what it is?
Yeah. So sales per payroll hour. Let me backtrack a little bit. So we have at our shop we have a board that has all these numbers on there. So when a crew comes in at the end of the day, they fill out how many total sales did they have, how many jobs did they complete, what's their average job size for that day, did they have any on-site cancellations that day, fuel percentage based on total sales for them, disposal percentage based on total sales for them, labor percentage, and then sales per payroll hour. What we call it SPPH, sales per payroll hour. What that does, that number basically tells you a few things. It tells you how quickly as a team are you working, and how accurately did you quote those jobs. We always shoot for a goal of above 85 for SPPH, and I would say that's one of the most important numbers that we track. And I look at this on a monthly average, a weekly to monthly average, because you're going to have days where you have all these cancellations, you have a bunch of minimum load jobs, all that stuff. But you'll notice when we put this in place, I kind of knew who our top guys were, but when we did, we had pretty much the same top 4 or 5 guys with the highest SPPH. But if you have guys with a low SPPH, that is basically a trigger to go in and figure out what's going on. Are they underquoting? Could be stealing, theft, hopefully not. Are they taking hour-and-a-half lunch breaks? Are they stopping at the gas station between every job? What are they doing that's causing their sales per payroll hour to be so much lower than everybody else?
So let's say it is $85. $85 per payroll hour. So you got 2 guys on a truck, so we're gonna do 85 times 2. If they run an 8-hour day, it's $170 an hour. So out of that truck, you're looking to get like maybe $13.60 or something like that on an 8-hour day. Now we know that oftentimes, again, we're running 10 or 12 hours on a day, so that number is going to be closer to what, $2,000, $1,800, $2,000. So, and there is variation. What we've seen over the last month or two is much lower average job sales, and that's not uncommon as you get into fall and winter, and then they pick back up in the spring and summer months. So, and it runs in spurts. That's the other thing we notice is you look at AGS one month and it might be 340, and you look at it another month, it might be 450.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is, again, junk removal is cyclical, it runs in spurts, all that kind of stuff. So you want to look it over it. We track it on a monthly basis, but you want to look at a quarterly basis, and we track it down on a weekly and a daily basis, obviously, on that board. But you want to look at SPPH over a longer time frame. And that right there, this is basically your profitability pulse right here, and you track it based on each employee, like Christian said, and you get a good idea who your top performers are. And again, when you do quarterly reviews and pay reviews and all, the guys with the highest SPPH are the ones that deserve to get paid a little bit more.
Yeah. Also, tracking those numbers daily, it shows your guys what does a good day look like and what does a bad day look like. I've seen a lot of different business owners be scared to talk about numbers, talk about quotes, talk about how much money that they're making. I want all of our guys to understand, did I have a good day or did I have a bad day? If I had a bad day, what would I have to change to make that a good day? What does a good day numbers look like? I want all those guys to understand that.
Very good. All right, good stuff. That's a fun one right there. So we got a question here, and Christian, I have to ask you because I forget who we use, and I'm hoping you will. The sticky notes that we order. Who are we ordering those sticky notes through?
Printpps.com.
Printpps.com. So we can add that in the comments right there, Neb. So printpps.com is where we're getting those things from. How long have we been getting them from there?
About a year. Okay. I can't remember the exact cost, but they're very, very inexpensive.
Yeah. Very good. All right, that looks like to be all the questions we've got so far. So make sure you throw some more questions in there, guys, if you got it. It can be about what we're talking about. It can be about something different. So just feel free to stick some questions and comments in there. Love to get some feedback on some of the stuff. Reviews. One of the most important things. Between Google My Business and the Google local service ads with junk doctors amongst all of our locations, I think we have 2,000 some reviews. It's like 1,000 on LSAs, and there's like over that on regular GMBs and everything. Yeah. So that's thousands of reviews, and I think our overall rating is 4.9. That's a lot of authority. Like if somebody's researching a company and they're trying to figure out who they're going to use, and all of a sudden they see this company with 2,000 reviews on a 4.9 average, and they see somebody else that has 20 reviews, might even be a 5.0 average, who are you going to use? If you see 4.9 and 2,000, or if you see 5.0 and 20, which company are you going to use?
Yeah, exactly.
You use the one that's 4.9, right?
Yeah.
If I see somebody with 20 reviews and a 5.0, I figured they had their friends and their neighbors leave 5-star reviews. So you got to get a lot of them. How are we getting reviews? How are we getting so many reviews? I mean, a couple thousand reviews is that's a lot. How are we doing that?
So we used the old system before that would require the team lead to, so we have iPads on every single truck, which is another thing I recommend. But at the end of every job, they would have to put in the customer's information and send it off right then and there in the customer's driveway to either their email or their text or whatever they preferred. And that worked if the employee actually did it. We found a system called NiceJob. It's $75 a month. We put that in place, it's been a little over a year now. Once we put that in place, our conversion rate on any reviews, we get a lot of 5-star reviews, but any reviews is at 21%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but in this industry, that's a big number.
Is this your picture on here?
No, that's not me.
Oh, it's not you? I thought it was you. Okay. All right.
I don't have a cowboy hat.
I thought you had a hat like that. Okay.
But so with NiceJob, what we did with it is if you guys are using Workies, you can use Zapier to connect the two so they talk to each other. When we finish a job, we change the job status to done pending approval, which that signals to us that that job's been completed, we've taken payment, we're done with that job. Once we change that status to done pending approval, that triggers NiceJob to go ahead and send that request to that customer. And that first point of contact from NiceJob is a text message. And that triggers immediately. They get that text, and a lot of times they'll post a review right then and there. But what NiceJob does also is if they don't open it, it sends them a drip campaign for the next 4 weeks. You can change this to whatever you want, but for the next 4 weeks, you can send a text message to that customer, you can send an email, and we've actually landed a lot of reviews that way with that second and third email. If they skip that text, we'll get a lot more reviews that way also. And I mean, since using them, our reviews have skyrocketed. So it's a program that I definitely recommend.
And the nice thing is it's automated.
Yeah.
So it syncs in with Workies, right?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yes, it does.
Excellent.
Yep.
So that's syncing with Workies. So excellent. So that's another one we use often, NiceJob. You can check it out, NiceJob.com. Did you talk about pricing? I might have missed that.
I want to say it's $75 a month. Yep, that's correct.
$75 a month right here. So that's the Grow program. $75 a month, worth every penny, because just a couple extra reviews can be the difference between landing a $500 job and you're going into your competitor.
Speaking of that, I mean, that video we just put out on that demo, when I was giving the estimate, that's exactly what the customer said. He's like, I was debating between you guys and one other company, but you guys have almost 1,000 reviews, so I chose you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge dollar job that we won because of our reviews.
And asking for them at the very end of the job, like Christian touched on, is huge too. Just getting that kind of commitment from the customer. And again, the way you do that is, hey, customer, on a scale of, well, you don't have to ask on a scale. What you do is, hey, I just want to make sure you're completely satisfied with everything here today. And if they say yes, then the next thing you're going to follow up with was, hey, again, we are a small business. Would you be willing to leave us a review online? And hey, if you don't mind, name me personally in there, because my employer, my boss, is looking on these reviews. And if they see that Walter sat there and we're really happy with Walter and with Chet, then they're going to leave a real, they give us a bonus for that. And by the way, hey, that's something you can do. So that encourages a more detailed review. The nice thing, a more detailed review, Google's algorithm likes that. So the more details that's out there, that's great. And hey, by the way, now this isn't something we regularly do, but if you can find a way, and I've heard of people doing this, those pictures, those thumbs up pictures we were talking about in front of the yard signs, if you can actually get the customer to post that on their Google review by chance, then that actually helps out the algorithm too. So any pictures that are added by customers, if they could list the city in there, that helps out also. So if you want to give some more information, say, hey, make sure in the case of junk doctors, make sure you mention it was the Raleigh location, Walter and Chet, and I get a little bonus when that happens. Then all of a sudden you get this longer review and it mentions some of the key cities that you're going after, and your Google My Business or Google Business Profile ranking, your map pack ranking goes up. So there's a little bit of SEO value in doing that as well.
Yeah.
All right. So whip around. We mentioned we're kind of jumping around here on the checklist side of things. End of job pictures. Mm-hmm. It also, Workiz has to do with that too. Talk to me a little about how we use end of job pictures and why that's so significant.
Yeah, I mean, if you have 5 or 10 trucks on the road and you're doing whatever amount of jobs every day, your guys are out there selling and closing that job themselves. So how are you as a business owner tracking how accurately they're quoting? Because if you have 1 or 2 employees that are off by 1 or 2 price points every single job that they're doing, that's a ton of money. So Workiz, with the end of job pictures, you can take a before and after picture. We take a picture of the stuff in the truck and put it on that job in Workiz. And I review about 10 to 15 jobs from every single employee every single week just to make sure the quotes are accurate. And going back to those KPIs that we track on Workiz, the average job size, if you have an employee that's got a really low average job size, having those job pictures is great for you to be able to go back and look at those job pictures to see if the quotes were accurate or not.
So you mentioned average job size. We actually have a question in here. Let's see. I Saw one pop up about what is a good average job size. I'm not seeing that now. I know I didn't imagine it.
What's
Oh
a
yeah, it's
good
right here.
AGS?
Just Dump It LLC. What is a good AGS for a company? So a lot of that's going to depend on your area. Like in North Carolina, and a lot of areas similar to North Carolina, we're trying to be around 400. Somewhere in that 400 range is a good area or good place to be. If you're in an area where it's more expensive to operate, you're going to want to be closer to 500. And we've got some companies out there in some certain areas that are like $600. So the nice thing when you have a higher AJS is oftentimes you can afford to pay more to acquire a customer. However, normally the reason your AJS is higher is because people in your area are used to spending more on things. They probably get paid a little more, but the cost of living is a lot higher. So a lot of that's just going to depend on the amount of cost of living in your particular area.
We typically see it just shy of half a load, just on average.
So not BS barbecue, BCS barbecue, sorry about that. Would you ever consider opening a landfill? You know a little bit about that, don't you?
I would love to open a landfill, but you need just a little bit of capital. Actually, millions and millions and millions of dollars of capital. So, yeah, it's something that would be nice to have, but
yeah, landfills and transfer stations are excellent businesses. If you do a C&D landfill, the requirements aren't going to be as crazy as an MSW. You don't see, normally MSW landfills are going to be like your Republic Waste and your Waste Industries, Waste Management, GFL. People with like big bucks. But C&D landfills are great. Transfer stations are a little cheaper to open. And there's great money to be had with that. Christian's wife's uncle actually used to own a round of transfer stations and recently sold out, over the last few years, sold out to Meridian Waste, which has been buying a lot of them up. So it's one of those excellent businesses that they cash flow really, really well. I mean, a lot of good landfills and all will make 10, 15, or 15, 20,000 plus, 50 grand a day.
Yeah.
I mean, what were some of the ones that we've heard of before? I mean, 20 grand a day.
C&D in a good market, I mean, 60 to 80K a day.
60, 80K a day. Yeah. So you got a lot of great money there. You got to have the money to buy the land initially. There's a finite period of time you're going to be able to use it. Eventually it's going to reach capacity. It's a great business to own. The nice thing with the transfer station, the land's still expensive for the transfer station because normally it's going to be located in an area where real estate is more money because you're going to be more centrally located. Otherwise people would just go to a landfill because normally landfills are on the outskirts. The nice thing though is you don't have that finite period of time. There's no expiration date on when you're going to be at capacity with a transfer station. And that's going to be a little easier for you to get. If you get to be a large enough operator, you get enough trucks yourself, it might be worth opening up a transfer station. That way you can dump there and then you allow other people to as well. You get to be able to take advantage of some economies of scale there. Do you all do service agreements? Talk about that, Christian.
So I'm assuming you're talking about having the customer sign something before you begin the job. Is that what you think they're talking about?
Yeah, just a signature at the start. You cover kind of terms and service and all like that, much like you would do for like a dumpster rental.
Yeah, that's a good question. So we would present the quote to the customer and we used to have them sign on the tablet that they agree to the price. All this stuff is in there that they agree to it. If we're doing a commercial client where we're going to be sending off the bill to get paid, we will have them sign. However, 75 to 80% of our business is residential. We made this change about 1.5 years ago where we are not requiring a signature before we get started on the job. And we made that change after working with Sam Schick. He was consulting with us. His thought process, which makes total sense to me, is that not doing that, you're kind of creating trust with that customer. We get a verbal agreement from the customer that, this is what you're looking at, Mr. Customer. We'll go ahead and load everything. And at the end of the job, if it's any less than that, we'll go ahead and drop the price right then and there. But, this is kind of what you're looking at here. We don't have them sign anything, like I said, unless it's a commercial client, apartment complex, stuff like that where we're sending the bill out to get paid.
And you mentioned commercial work. So one of the questions on here is how do we land commercial contracts?
Contracts is, that's a tough word to use in this business because you're not doing weekly and monthly pickups typically. Like an apartment complex, for an example, they're going to call you when they need your services. So we have the best way to win that commercial work is to create relationships. It's going in there to apartment complexes, it's shaking hands, it's meeting people. Any commercial business that you're going to go after, it's all about what I've seen is creating that relationship with that customer. I can't tell you how many numbers that I've got and our dispatch guy has of personal cell phone numbers from our commercial clients where they'll literally just text us, hey, we need this picked up on this day. They could care less about the price because we've already built that relationship with them.
Yeah.
They trust us and know that we're going to do a great job, with them. So
For a consistent price. So
yeah.
The places to hit up all the time. I mean, obviously, you mentioned apartment complexes. We work with some local housing authorities too that provide kind of Section 8 housing. Property managers, we've got a lot we work with. Professional organizers, we've got a handful we work with. Realtors, we got a handful we work with. People talk about realtors all the time. The thing with realtors is everybody under the sun pitches to realtors, so they're a little harder to actually land. And oftentimes they're actually not the best clients. Everything's at the last minute. They want to wait to the last possible moment to pay you. We've had one that didn't, a couple over the past that didn't pay us. So my mother-in-law's a realtor, so she's a very good one. But a lot of realtors are just a bit of a pain. So there's better options out there. You still want to hit them, but professional organizers, property management companies, small remodelers. So if people that do just a bathroom demo or in renovation, that's not really enough space that you require a dumpster. So we've got a handful of companies we work with that they'll say, hey, we've got a quarter load, it's all in trash bags, it's sitting out in our driveway. They'll text us, when can you come and get them? The great thing is normally it's not on a schedule, so we just fit it into wherever it makes sense for us to go out and actually get that work. We don't have too many just contracts where it's like housing. There's a couple housing authorities, I guess we do. And we do stuff for some code enforcement offices. The housing authority, we lock in pricing and all kind of ahead of time.
Yeah.
But most of them, it's kind of a handshake relationship thing, like you talked about, where you go out and do the work. That can be done. The best way is the business owner, once you get off the truck, to go form those relationships on your own. The other thing is, in addition just to calling on people, knocking on their door, participating in, if you have a Rotary Club, Chamber of Commerce, there's just a general networking events. Go and participate in those things. It takes time, but your goal should be to get to the point where 20% of your business, 20 to 25% of your business is commercial, and it can take years to get to that point. But if you can get to that point, then that is some pretty good consistent work that tends to happen year-round. To use review aids like pot cards where you can just hold in front of a phone and it takes the customer to your review page. We don't use that, but NiceJob sort of serves that same purpose by sending off the text message, so that's not something that we use. Junk 180, the text from NiceJob, is that a phone number you get to choose, or is it a random number from NiceJob? Do you find customers try to subsequently contact the business through this phone number?
No, it comes from NiceJob. It comes with a link. It says basically who you are, thank you for your business. This is Junk Doctors. Please leave a review. And when they click that link, it connects them directly to your social media or your GMB.
Junk Something LLC. I'll handle this one. You've been talking a lot here recently. So no, I'm kidding. But under quote, do you go up on the price or do you take the L and learn from it? There's a couple different ways of doing job quotes. One of the ways that we really like is actually providing a range. So it's, especially if it's a larger job. If it's a smaller job or whatever, we just tell somebody the price and we go and we do it. If it's a really big job, then we're going to give a range. And we're going to say, you're going to be between this and this. And once we get everything loaded up, we'll let you know exactly kind of where that falls. That reduces the probability that you have to take a loss on a job because you give yourself a bit of a range. Some jobs that are really, really, really large, I mean, let's say if we go and we see a hoarding job and we think it's 20 truckloads. How are we going to approach quoting that? Because we know when you get into a hoarding job, you oftentimes uncover stuff that you never knew was there.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much any job that's over a load, we're normally giving a range. if it's a 20 load job, we're not going to go in there and say it's 20 loads. You know, we're going to, at that point, 20 loads is probably going to be a 4 to 5 truck range where we're going to say it's 18 to 22 or 23 loads. Even smaller stuff, you know, it's a lot of times we have a lot of jobs where we're not sure if we can get it in a full load. We'll tell the customer, you know, hey, this is our full load price. We're pretty confident we can get it in a full load, but we're going to go ahead and quote it at full and a minimum just to cover yourself. You know, if you end up not being able to get it in a full, that covers your trip to landfill and to get back to get that other stuff.
Where you miss out, if you miss it and you quoted it at 3/4 of a load or half load, it winds up being 3/4 of a load. Like, it sucks to miss out on, you know, $150, $200 or whatever that difference might be. But where it really hurts you is if you have to come back for another load, because then you have all that extra expense in there, and that's where it like really, really, really hurts you. So to answer your question, we try and avoid giving that firm price to keep us out of that situation. Whatever you tell the customer, though, you need to honor. So you have to recognize a situation. If it's a really big job, you want to give that range. And one of the things you can tell them is, hey, you know, the reason I'm providing you a range is to look after both of us. Because I could give you a price where I know like it's not going to go over that amount. It could be a really high price. And if you sign off on it and I go and it takes 2 loads less or whatever, I still get paid that full amount. By doing the range, I'm looking, you know, I'm able to watch myself in case I miss it. You know, we don't just blow it and we don't make any money. And it also protects you, because if we wind up getting it in less than I think I can, maybe on the bottom end of this range, then you don't wind up overpaying. So everybody wins with a range. And normally, if you've got good quality customers coming in, that actually generally works pretty daggone well. That's an excellent question. Are you guys, this is Wally Gone, are you guys experimenting with alternative billing methods? For example, having a fixed minimum price for the truck size and billing on how many hours the job takes to complete? No, we just do a set range based on volume, except one quarter load, we allow 30 minutes of time. A full load is 2 hours. Now, if it takes 40 minutes for a quarter load, we're normally not going to charge extra. If it takes 3 or 4 hours on a full load, we're going to charge extra. So time factors into it a little bit because we have an allotted time for the size of the job. The nice thing is that helps you out if you face a situation where a customer wants you to move stuff other than stuff that's getting disposed of. They want you to sort through stuff. There's other situations out there. If it's just like really small stuff, you're having to like shovel up, sweep up, shovel up. Now you're protected. Your profit margins are protected because you've got a time limit in there. So we do a little bit of that, but we want to do a volume-based rate. You're going to get more. You're going to get paid more by doing the volume-based rate, and it gives the customer a firm price. You know, you're not going to be able to charge. You know, there's times we go to a garage and it takes us 20 minutes to load up a full truckload, which is $600, and you're not that equates to what, $1,800 an hour or something like that. So I mean, you're not going to be able to charge somebody for that. But if it's $600 and you show up and you haul the stuff off and all, a lot of people are real happy with that, and you're not going to get that on an hourly rate.
It also simplifies a lot of things. You know, that 30 minutes per quarter truckload rule of thumb. A lot of guys ask me this also. Well, what if it's in the attic or what if it's in the garage? Simplifies things for your employees and the customer. It's very easy to explain. You're not having to do a bunch of, you know, I charge $2 a step or, you know, anything like that. It keeps things very simple.
Very good. Juan from Bay Hauling, good stuff, guys. Thanks, Juan. And then he asked, will there be a JunkCon 2024? We will do some sort of event that we will probably put the trademark term JunkCon on it, but it probably will not be like it was last year, which was the big, massive, hundreds of people's event in a huge convention center with Mike Michalowicz as the keynote speaker and all that kind of stuff. An event of that magnitude just takes so much time to plan. It distracts us from kind of our core business. It also costs a tremendous amount of money. So I think what we'll probably do is a conference for maybe some top kind of performers. And that way it's more of like a networking event. and then we can really maybe dive into sort of each other's businesses. That's what we're thinking of doing next year. But it's going to be kind of a smaller, more intimate setting, probably 20, 25 people, maybe 50 at most. It's not going to be, 500, 600 like the last one was. We might eventually look to do something like that again if people want to do it, but we'll probably look to actually bring some other people in on it rather than kind of tackling it all on our own. It's just, people don't understand, and I didn't understand it until we did it, the expense that goes into putting on those events. And you get initial quotes on stuff from convention centers, and it seems pretty reasonable, but then you realize every single time you use a power outlet, which they don't tell you this up front, or if they did, it's buried in the fine print and we miss it. But every time we hooked up to a power outlet, it was like another $75. And every time you wanted to use a stall in the bathroom, it was like another $75. And before you know it, what was a reasonable cost for a rental of a convention center turned into a massive bill that made it tough to break even on the event. So, Junk 180, Bay Hauling, appreciate you guys. Wallet Gons, awesome. Thank you so much for these comments and questions. We've got some more stuff on here, but the questions were excellent. And I'm trying to see if there's anything that's super important for us to miss, to hit. Do you have anything that we have not covered that you think would be super important to make sure we get on this webinar?
I mean, I could talk about this for another 2 hours.
We don't have that much time.
We hit a lot of good stuff. So if I could say anything, just wrapping up, if take one of the things once, take that checklist, take the scorecard, put it up on your shop, on a board at your shop, and go ahead and implement it. Don't try to do everything at once. Just tackle one thing at a time, prove it, and then move on to the next thing.
Excellent. Good stuff there. Hey, everybody, throw a great comment in there. Thank Christian for jumping on this. I think he did an excellent job. Awesome information to pop on there. If you want him back on here, make sure you comment and give him a compliment on how well he did. That way we can convince him to come back on for a later webinar, because I think it added a lot to it to get a couple different perspectives here. B&I, we have had another question pop in. What do you guys think about B&I groups? If you've got the time to dedicate to do them, then do them, and do as many of them as you can, because B&I groups pretty much require you to get referrals for other people in your group. The thing is with B&I groups, they normally only allow you to miss like 2 or 3 a year. So your own chapter is going to have its own requirement.
And it's a weekly event.
It's a weekly event. So, it's a big commitment. If you are having to be on the truck relatively often and all, it's probably not a great, or certainly not a great thing at that point. Once you're regularly off the truck and things are running smooth, participate in all those things. They're excellent. All right, guys. Trevin is out of Texas with Mean Green Junk Removal. What kind of systems do you guys, this is going to be the final question, guys, I'm sorry, but what kind of systems do you guys have in place for slow season and providing top performers working hours during slow season? I'll let you take this one, Christian.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have a bank built up. I mean, as your busy season goes on, you have to account that you're really not going to make much money, December through end of February, early March. But you have to keep giving your guys hours or they're just going to go find another job. So that's when we're doing all that truck-based marketing. We're hammering that during the wintertime. Any big projects where we have to take a truck down for repainting, anything like that, that's when we're doing that. You have to keep your guys moving. They might not get 40 hours, in the middle of January, but you want to still at least make sure they have enough to cover their bills and still have a job. You don't want to drop their hours to nothing, because you're going to lose them and then you're going to be starting from scratch, come March or April.
What you got to remember is once March hits, it's like a switch flips generally. Now this year was weird. It was a little bit more gradual. Everything was a little later. We used to say March 15th. I mean, March 14th, God, it's dead. It's a slow season. March 15th, your hair's on fire and you're doing everything you can to catch up. So it is important that you're staffed up and ready to be able to roll with your employees come mid-March. Sometimes you're going to have, there's maybe some guys you can't get enough hours through the slow season, they wind up leaving, but your top guys you want to make sure you really, really protect. The other thing that we like to do is we like telling our top guys, hey, you guys have been used to 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week or whatever. Now that we're getting into slower season, November, December, January, and February, you got to understand that you're going to be getting less. So what you need to wind up doing is like August, do your best to let those guys know, hey, why don't you save up a little bit of money here to kind of get you through the slower time. And what we found is a lot of guys, if they can do that, they actually grow to appreciate the slow season because they kill it in the spring and summer. They get it's a little bit of an easier schedule. It's less hectic come the 3 months or so that are generally fairly slow. From a business standpoint, he mentioned kind of having a bit of a nest egg. When you're a small company and you only have a few employees, and especially if you're still pretty actively involved, especially if you're on the truck, you really won't lose money through the winter, but you just make less. Once you get to the size of Junk Doctors, and we're trying to kind of maintain a lot of our top guys, you know, December, there's some years where December is a decent year. So I mean, there's some years we still might be profitable, make a decent amount of money in December. But a lot of times we roll into January and February. You know, this is a $3 million a year business. We might lose 10, 15, 20 grand in January and February, just covering the overhead and making sure our guys are out there getting yard signs out and doing that, and truck maintenance and all that kind of stuff. So we plan on having that nest egg 30, 40 grand to kind of cover any losses that might occur during the slow season.
And we touched on commercial work earlier. That'll help you get through that slow season. That's another thing you can have your guys do is have a list of every apartment complex in your area, have a list of every storage unit in your area, all that stuff, and have them hit those, you know, on a bi-weekly, monthly basis or whatever, just to keep them rolling and try to get that commercial business to get you through the wintertime.
Awesome. Great stuff. Well, hey, guys, we really appreciate each and every one of you for jumping on this webinar presentation. When's our next one, Neb? Do you have the date in front of you? I don't know if we have a next one next week or not. My wife is due with a baby any day now, though, so I think next Wednesday is the due date. So if that happens next Wednesday, if we're supposed to have one on Thursday, which I know we do one at 12 noon every Thursday, that won't be happening. But if the baby decides it's going to hang in there a little bit late, then we'll be doing one again next Thursday. And I think in 2 weeks' time is when the next round of the official JRA webinar series sponsored by Workies takes place. If there's anything we can do to help you with your digital marketing services, if you're interested in getting business through our business package franchise alternative, head over to junkra.com and you can get on, submit your information. You can do a little research on there. You'll talk with Shane if you get your info over. Shane's a real nice guy. Everybody loves Shane, and he'll kind of explain what we might be able to do to help you start, run, and grow your junk removal company. We'll see everybody here in a week, most likely. If not, we'll be back here in 2 weeks for another webinar. That is the JRA webinar series presented by Workies. Christian, thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see y'all next time. Thanks again, everybody.
The last 4 years, partnering with Workies, we've seen a massive growth.